got to perfect. All right. Well, now we're recording. We'll start it here once we're in the live bigger screen here. So, good evening, everyone. I'm Matt Eller, and I am one of the JV coaches for the STMA wrestling program at STMA High School. And I am fortunate enough to be here to interview a good friend, colleague, and also coach, Jesse Hackenmueller. So, Jesse, let's have you introduce yourself here and tell us a little bit about your high school wrestling career here.
Like Matt said, I'm Jesse Hackenmueller. This year, I'm coaching at times here within our program. I'm just a volunteer position, a little bit more freedom to come and go this year, which has been nice. All right, but still like to stay in the room and be able to hang out with Coach Eller and Coach Dorman and the rest of the guys and work with the athletes at times when I'm able to. But going back to my high school career, so I graduated from St. Michael in 2001. I started wrestling about as young as I can remember, probably kindergarten, first grade. Had two older brothers, so they both wrestled. So I was obviously in the room quite a bit. Just either they were practicing or I was in the gym watching them compete in tournaments and traveling around with Dad and watching them wrestle. So kind of been around it, just not only with them, but then also with my uncles and my dad. All right. Yeah. My dad actually was on the very first wrestling team that St. Michael High School had ever had. Graduated in 1969, and that was the year in which St. Michael had a high school and started the wrestling program. He was actually a captain on that very first wrestling team of the 1968-1969 season. So he started there, and then the rest of his younger brothers continued to wrestle. Uncle Paul Hackenmueller is actually the first state placer in St. Michaelville wrestling program history. He placed in state, so he is up on the wall. So kind of my uncles all wrestled, my cousins all wrestled, my brothers wrestled, and that's kind of just how I got into it, and then continued to wrestle all the way from elementary through middle school and through high school until I graduated in 2001.
Nice. That's awesome, because my first question was going to be, what got you into wrestling? And you gave us the story, and that's awesome. And so much of it through the different interviews I've done and just being in this community just for a little bit of time, it's just so much of it is family, right? Whether you have a history of family members competing currently or in the past, or you just feel like you belong to the STMA wrestling family. So much of it comes down to that. So that's awesome to hear that was part of your upbringing and experience and allowed you to be involved in the sport. So I guess the next question I had for you is, what do you enjoy most about the sport of wrestling? This can be from hopefully more of the, you as a competitor perspective.
What I enjoy, and probably what I did enjoy the most in wrestling, winning a match in wrestling, I thought had no comparison to a victory or winning in any other sport, to be honest with you. So I played baseball and I played football also all the way through high school. But winning in wrestling was probably the greatest feeling that you can get when it comes to any type of victory in any type of sports setting, just simply because it's just such an accomplishment, right? It's all of, that you were the main one who contributed. There's really not a whole lot that anybody else can do to help you. So that feeling was fantastic, really, really fun. Now that I'm getting older, I just kind of I like the workout. All right. Maybe when I was younger, I kind of disliked the workout maybe a little bit more as you're going to practice there, getting beat up on over and over again. But I like the workout now, but I say that feeling was fantastic. And the sense of accomplishment that you get from wrestling, from just simply making it through a practice or making it through a tournament or making it through some of those tough matches that you may have had wrestling against tough opponents, overcoming some of the obstacles, such as what they ask you to do in practice, such as, all the cutting weight, all the discipline that went into that, and being able to meet those goals and meet those expectations that were set by you and set by the team. And that's really fun too, as you kind of look back and see what it was. Not as much fun maybe in the moment. It's harder to focus on that, and then just the bond. Another fun thing too, I had a very large graduating class. I believe there's about 13 of us. I want to say that we graduated together, and just that was really fun. We kind of came up through the program together. We wrestled all together throughout all the years, and it was just a large class that graduated together. And that was and friends of mine that I still stay in close contact with today. So a lot of benefits.
Nice. Yeah, that sounds awesome. So when you look back, and you kind of alluded to this already, but if you could pinpoint one specific challenge that you had to overcome while wrestling, what was it? What was kind of the most challenging thing you had to overcome as a wrestler?
Probably myself in regards to my overall mental state, my mentality. So I I put a lot of pressure on myself as it came through, knowing that, I see Uncle Paul's name up on the board and Uncle Ronnie up on the wall, and see those guys. My dad wrestled, my brothers wrestled, my brothers had success. I put a lot of pressure on myself, to be honest with you. I didn't handle losing really well as as a young kid in elementary, and really even in college, and as an adult, I don't really like losing even to this day. But I put a lot of pressure on myself to perform well, just based on who had wrestled before me with my siblings and my family members. And me getting inside my own head was probably the biggest obstacle that I had, and not being able to just kind of go out there and enjoy it, like we continually preach here in practice and in our program, to enjoy it, be grateful for the opportunity, and just enjoy the process. I didn't. I kind of ruined myself a little bit in that area. That was the biggest challenge for me. I actually did not wrestle for a portion of my high school career, unfortunately. I got hurt my sophomore year, and then my junior got hurt again, and chose not to return to the mat my junior year. And then I actually chose not to come out at the beginning of my senior year. And I did come out halfway through my senior year, thought about quitting again, until Coach Greeno and Coach LaFave more or less said, "You're sticking this through, because this is something that you will look back on and you will regret the rest of your life if you quit now and don't finish your senior year." And they were 100% correct. So because of them, I was able to finish my high school career, but I still look back and regret not wrestling for about a year there, in which I did have a chance to come back. So I wasn't in a very good mindset. Wasn't that tough. I'll be honest with you. I was soft, and I kind of beat myself up, and I wasn't very tough mentally. And I'm afraid to think of where I would be in regards to overall mental toughness and overall mental state if I had not competed in wrestling, considering how much it had done for me.
Yeah.
So my biggest obstacles, myself, being in my own head and not enjoying the moment and enjoying the process as much as I should have.
Nice. That's a lot of really good reflecting, and I'm sure you've done so over the handful of years since then. So it's awesome. That's a great answer.
Nice. I'm reminded of it every time I go to wrestling practice every season, how I should have.
Yep. Me too. Let's go to the next one. And some of the questions I have, you're touching on your answers here, which is awesome. And so if some of the questions all of a sudden kind of feel repetitive, that's okay. We can skip a couple. But anyway, the next one I have here, what parts of your wrestling career at STMA have translated well into what you do for a career?
Work ethic. It teaches you how to work, teaches discipline, teaches you how, when you commit to something and accomplish those goals and accomplish a task, how rewarding it is. It really how to stick to something too. I'm very honest with all the athletes that I coach. So I coach baseball also. And I'm completely straightforward up front with the baseball players, and they'll ask me, "What do you like better, wrestling or baseball?" And I tell them, I love baseball. I tell them I love baseball. It's my favorite sport. But I tell them, wrestling, though, I'm well aware that wrestling did more for me than any sport that I ever competed in or participated in. The work ethic that you need in order to make it through a season, the discipline that you need, the mindset, all right, the mental toughness, the ability to prepare for not only practices but cutting weight, for tournaments, for individual matches, for duels, state tournaments, things such as that. I'm pretty straightforward with them, though, and tell them that wrestling benefits you more than any sport there is out there. And I tell them baseball is my favorite sport. I love it, but I'm not blind to what the sport of wrestling does for every individual who participates in it and gives it everything that they have. So,
cool. That's a great answer, Hack. How about this one? Since we went down the pipeline of what we wish we would have done better, what are you most proud of when you look back at your STMA wrestling experience?
Most proud of is probably. I guess I would say probably leading up to the beginning of my high school career, I was really proud being a varsity starter since the ninth grade. I was really, really proud of that. And looking back, I thought that's probably one of my bigger athletic accomplishments in regards to being a varsity starter my freshman year and sophomore year, and then being able to earn a varsity spot when I returned my senior year. All right. I was always competing against guys that are really, really tough, competing against guys like Nate LaFave and being able to, the coach's kid, right? Being able to compete with him at his level, I was really proud of, simply because, he had been around wrestling, obviously with Coach LaFave around his dad all the time. And so just being able to compete at that level on my own early in my high school career is probably one of my biggest accomplishments. The biggest one, though, is obviously going to be my senior year when I had to beat out another challenger for a varsity spot my senior year to actually end my senior season on varsity. And the guy who I had to beat was Chaz Betts. Lucky for me, when I was a senior, Chaz was only a freshman. And so, and lucky for me also, I had two older brothers who gave me a little bit of insight. They're like, all right, if you tie up with Chaz, he's going to throw you and probably pin you. So stay low. So there was several low singles taken in that match. I stayed as low as possible, just kind of stayed safe, managed to beat him because he was young and I was older. And that is probably my biggest accomplishment after everything now.
And after everything you had gone through with an injury and that mental toughness, trying to get in a mentally right place to come back and finish things out the right way, and also knowing how successful Chaz went on to be. I mean, he's obviously a very tough wrestler. So yeah, that's awesome. That's a good story. And hopefully you hold that over him as much as you can. Right? Yes, I certainly would, right? Awesome. Okay, kind of a little off the topic a little bit here. Do you have a favorite sports hero? And I guess growing up, who did you look up to as far as a role model, maybe a professional athlete, maybe a coach, maybe an educator? It can kind of be anybody, but who, I guess, first of all, do you have a favorite sports hero? And second of all, who did you look up to growing up in the sport here?
Oh, that's a great question. It's my sports hero, probably my favorite baseball player coming through is probably going to be Kenny Lofton, because he was smaller and he was fast. And I thought, well, if he's small and fast and can have success, well, then I can have success too, because I'm small and fast. But he was kind of a sports guy. To be honest, when I was coming through high school, university, so he was my favorite. David Ortiz. In regards to wrestling specific, it's gonna be my family members. I'll be honest with you. Yeah. My brothers, I thought, were the greatest thing in the world. Right, they're 4 and 5 years older than me, and just going and watching them was just awesome. I had never missed a match. Me and a friend of mine, that we both had older brothers that were about the same age. So, good friend of mine, Randy Damer, actually, who also wrestled through a program. Him and I would be at every tournament, at every match, watching our older brothers. It was great. We absolutely loved it. Outside wrestling, probably my family, my parents and my grandparents. Growing up on a farm, being able to see how people work and actually work, right, and seeing the work ethic of my grandparents, both sets of them on farms, and seeing the work ethic of my parents and my dad farming was a big role model for me. And now looking back, even when I maybe didn't want to work on the farm, which was often, having to work benefited me and pretty much helped me. It helps me in every daily activity that I do when it comes to my career that I'm currently in. And so yeah, those are some sports heroes I kind of looked up to. I thought were really fun, and then kind of some wrestling specific people I looked up to too.
That's awesome. So Kenny Lofton, was he a Cleveland outfielder?
Yeah, Cleveland Indians, little center fielder, leadoff guy. He was fantastic, fast little guy. Yeah. He was fun.
Yep, I remember. We're close in age, relatively close in age. I remember watching some of those Twins Cleveland series games, and he being a key figure for them.
That's a big compliment. Did you just say that you and I, Coach Eller, are close in age? God, this is great. Now that we get you on camera, You treat me so well when it comes to my age. I think this is good.
It's so nice that I can edit stuff, like it's no, it's good. Yeah, that's so fun. Okay, so let's see here, Hack. I have a couple more and a couple that you kind of already answered, so I won't have quite as many questions for you here, but I like this question a lot. So we know that there's this balance of wrestling being an individual sport, but also being a team sport. And so what we all know is we can see those individual accolades, whatever they may be in wrestling, right? Whether they be mental toughness, whether they manifest in state championships, just, overall improvement in life and that kind of thing. We all can measure those. But what I'm wondering about here is, being a part of a team here. And what did you learn about teamwork from being on some of the teams that you were on?
Wrestling, I really enjoyed the team aspect. I think a lot of the guys that wrestled really enjoyed the team aspect. Even with all the graduating seniors we had when I graduated in 2001, I think only one went actually on to wrestle college. Nate Lefebvre went and wrestled at St. John's, and I think he was the only one to actually go on and wrestle at the next level. So I think that kind of showed a little bit of how we kind of just liked not only wrestling, I think we liked being together, and we liked the team aspect. What that taught me is kind of how I think it helps with roles, and it helps with everybody is contributing, even though you're out there individually on the mat by yourself. Everybody throughout a duel has a specific role and a specific goal, right? And not everybody's going to have the same goal as, hey, you go out and win, right? Or go out and get 6. That's probably not going to be the goal or a realistic goal for everybody when it comes to a full team effort. Mm-hmm. For some guys, it might be, hey, with their matchup, go out and get 6. That's your expectation, and that's what your goal is. So for some guys, it's, hey, keep this match close. Or some guys, it's, hey, don't get majored, stay off your back. And knowing how that switches from duel to duel and switches from matchup to matchup, mm-hmm. and being able to embrace that role or what's expected of you and embrace that sacrifice that you're going to have to make. Sometimes when you're fluctuating between weight classes too, hey, this is where we need you for maybe this matchup, this is where we need you for this team, which we did a little bit more of maybe. Taught me how everybody has an important part, even though it might not be the same part. Everybody has an important part to be able to contribute to the overall success of the team. And I thought that was just excellent. That was really, really fun because it was kind of a little bit easier maybe to see during football, right? Different responsibilities, or maybe during baseball, different responsibilities, different positions, but be able to see that same dynamic and that same team aspect in wrestling, I thought was great. And really the team aspect really came into factor too when you're conditioning and when you're in practices and you're doing early morning runs and things like that. When you're cutting weight, when you're getting extra workouts in, and you got a few teammates with you, that was a really, really big team portion of it that you really don't get, to be honest with you, in a whole lot of other sports. The sacrifice that you're putting in, and you got a couple guys there that are doing the same thing and pushing each other through those times and creating that bond, which I really, really enjoyed.
Nice. And then kind of on that same token, but just kind of on the other side of the coin here, how did your team make you a better wrestler?
I think because you are able to me, from what I've seen with wrestlers, maybe in the past, I feel like you can almost get more out of yourself when you have the team backing you. For me, I pushed myself probably pretty hard. I probably expected more out of myself than anybody else. It's probably why I kind of was really hard on myself and maybe put too much pressure on myself. It was probably because of that mindset. I was really, really hard on myself in all athletic settings. But I think for not only me, but especially maybe a lot of other athletes too, where, pretty self-motivated, but also now you got 12, 13 other guys on the bench, have your back, knowing that you're out there competing for them and on their behalf and competing for the overall success of the team. I think that brings out a little bit more out of you. I think it brings a little bit more effort out of you. I think it brings a little bit more focus out of you. Maybe a little bit more endurance toward the end of the match brings that out of you. I think it just brings a little bit more out of you and allows you to perform at even a higher level than maybe what you think you're capable of doing when you have your team behind you and they're relying on you and rooting for you.
Great. Yeah, that's an awesome answer. And those two questions really enter into the same dynamic, but just really both sides of that dynamic. And it's a little iron sharpens iron in that way, right? Where the individual and team dynamic, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Last question for you. what is one piece of advice you would give to anyone starting their wrestling career to help them be a successful wrestler?
Stick with it. I mean, I've lost track how many conversations I've had with high schoolers and middle school athletes and wrestlers throughout the year, and throughout the years that I've been coaching. Simply stick with it. All right. So for some kids, it's going to be a time commitment, right? Or some kids, it's going to be maybe a strength component, right? Getting stronger. And maybe that's why they're maybe not having as much success, or it's been tough on them. For some kids, it's brand new, and maybe it's a technique thing, right? Where they just need to get more mat time and need to improve their technique. Some kids, it's maybe confidence thing, right? They need to improve their overall confidence or to stay with it. So every wrestler is going to have these different things that might be a holdup for them, or maybe a reason for them to maybe not continue with wrestling, or why they're not having as much success as they want. No matter what the reason is, if you can simply get the message through these kids to just simply fight through any obstacle that they may have, or any reason they might be doubting themselves or questioning why they want to continue to wrestle, stick with it. I have never, in your same way, Coach Aller, we have never had a former wrestler come back to us and say, you know what? I really regret wrestling. Oh my goodness. I would not have stuck with it. No one's ever said it. All right. But you and I have lost track of how many wrestlers who have come to us their junior or senior year, or when they're out of high school, and they're like, oh, I should have stayed with wrestling. I mean, I wrestled my 9th grade year and I had fun. And then, I don't know, I just didn't go out my 10th grade year. I wrestled my 9th and 10th grade, or maybe I came out 10th grade and then they didn't come back out their junior year. And every single one of them, regardless of the situation, regardless of the circumstances, they all come back and say, I regret quitting, and I regret not coming out to wrestle. And so I'm able to talk to them a little bit about that, simply because I did quit, like I said, when I was in high school, and that was a poor decision on my part. And I can kind of explain that to them, how poor of a decision that may be, because you're going to regret it, which I still do. So talking to them about that, but boy, just stick with it. You will never, ever regret that. And then maybe being able to work on what specific aspect maybe they need some help in, or need some assistance in, or maybe what the one thing that's kind of putting something in their mind that maybe they should not continue with this. Mm-hmm. So.
Oh, great advice, a great answer, and spoken from a place of experience, which I think really connects with a lot of people. So, well, thanks a lot, Hack. I really appreciate it. It was so fun, like hearing about your experience and picking your brain a little bit here about your time in our program and just some things that you've taken out of the sport. Really appreciate you doing the interview. It was a lot of fun, like I mentioned, for me. So, again, Jesse Hackenmueller, 2001 grad, current volunteer coach here, and also obviously coaching other activities at our high school. So thanks again, Hack, for joining us as an alum from 2001, and we appreciate the interview here.
Thanks for having me. This was fun. This is really good.
Awesome. Okay, so I'll end it now. I'll end the recording, Hack. I have to just go out of full screen.